with this, a story that grabbed my attention because it kind of came out of left field. Korobov. Jacobs has avoided me at all costs. I want him next. He was quoted as saying, Jacobs knows he can't beat me. Korobov told BoxingScene.com. He has avoided a fight with me as a professional at all costs because he knows it would only repeat my dominance over him as an amateur. Jacobs' style never changed. I would fight him at 160, 168, whatever he wants. This is no problem for me because I know I will win. For me, if you make big money, you should fight the most difficult opponents. Jacobs knows besides Canelo and Triple G, I'm the most difficult opponent for him. Remember what I tell you, Korobov said. Jacobs will see this story and not think about fighting me because he has shared a ring with me before. Same as Charlo. One time sharing a ring with me is enough for them. I should be 2-0 in my last 2 fights, Korobov said. I beat Charlo and Aleem. Fortunately, millions of people saw those 2 fights on Fox. They know the truth. And remember, I fought Charlo on 6 days' notice. For Jacobs, I would train like never before. I would win this fight for my family. 100%. These are just my thoughts. Matt Korobov is alleging that Daniel Jacobs has been avoiding him.
He has?
And I find that comment strange. I find this call-out strange. It seems to come from out of left field. Because these 2 guys' names haven't been synonymous with each other.
Nope.
It's a good fight, though. It is a good fight. I want to get that out the way first. It is a good fight. If you can get them both in the ring with each other, yeah, you'd get an entertaining fight, trust me. But better still, to address the call-out itself. Seems that, what's motivating Matt's comments are something that happened in the amateurs? I mean, that was a long time ago, dog. I'm pretty sure Daniel Jacobs has picked up a thing or 2 since then, and so have you. So, I don't know that that's the real reason that Matt is calling out Daniel Jacobs, of all people. You want me to be honest? If you want me to be honest, I think if Matt Korobov is calling out Daniel Jacobs, it's because he knows that PBC don't got a lot to offer a middleweight contender. They just don't. All they got is Jamal Charlo. Matt fought him already. I don't think Jamal's gonna give him a rematch. But that's about it. That's what they really got. That's the biggest fight they can offer a middleweight. That's the biggest fight. Matt already had it, and Matt already got robbed. A lot of people will tell you that too. So what else is left for him to do on that side of the street? So for this reason, I really think he's calling out Daniel Jacobs. That's what I really think is motivating the call out. Daniel Jacobs is a guy who's been involved in some big situations in the middleweight division. He has. Ever since he left the PBC, he started putting up real good numbers, you know?
He did.
Think about it. He put up better numbers fighting Luis Arias than he did with both Sergio Mora and Peter Quillen. He put up better numbers fighting Luis Arias. He put up better numbers fighting fucking Maciej Suliecki than he did fighting Peter Quillen. He became a full-fledged champion. He fought Golovkin, gave him a good run for his money, all this stuff. I mean, he's essentially, I'm just recapping that he's done things since leaving the PBC side of the street. Bigger things than what he had going on when he was there. So he made himself a name, a respectable name, in the middleweight division. And he's not on the PBC side of the street, you get me? He's on the Matchroom DAZN side of the street. And for Matt to be looking in that direction for a fight that's not for a belt, it wouldn't be a belt on the line, but he's still looking at him and he's still calling him out. For him to be looking at Danny of all people, Danny who might be going up to 168, according to Danny, post-fight after Canelo, that's something they're flirting with. Better still, Matt's looking at him. And if Matt is looking at him, I reiterate, I think it's because PBC don't got a lot to offer a middleweight contender. They just don't. There's not a lot of big fights they can make for you. And since they don't work well with others, that really limits your options. If we were talking about 147 or 154, PBC might have more to offer a guy. They got a lot of bouts for a guy to fight for in those weight classes. But at middleweight, they only got one. And you already fought that guy, and, let's be honest, they kind of robbed you. And Jamal's not about to give Matt a rematch, so what does Matt Korobov do in that situation?
Call out Danny.
So for this reason, I think he's calling out Daniel Jacobs, and that would explain why the call-out seems kind of bizarre, seems kind of impromptu, almost coming from out of left field. Like, when did this become a conversation? When did Daniel Jacobs avoid Matt Korobov? That's another question I had when I read this thing. I didn't see an interview, I don't have a soundbite. I didn't hear any audio. I just read the article, and I'm thinking to myself, the quotes from Matt Korobov seem almost forceful. Like he's angry, or at least he's trying to convey anger.
Yeah.
That Daniel Jacobs has been avoiding you? When? I mean, when did that happen? Matt Korobov, he had a fight November 2016. That's the last fight he had that whole year. The following year, he don't fight nobody. He was out of action the whole year. He comes back in March of 2018. Now think about this for a second. Get in your time machine. 2017, the middleweight division was a hot weight class. It's all anybody was talking about. Golovkin, Canelo, Jacobs, Lemieux. You know, there's a lot of names in the mix, a lot of things going on, a lot of eyes on that weight class. And it just so happens that at that time, Matt Korobov wasn't around. So, you know, I'm trying to understand, when would Daniel Jacobs have even avoided Matt Korobov? You know, I don't get that. And that's what makes it seem like a strange impromptu call out that's coming from left field. But if you could get if you could get both Matt and Danny in the ring, yeah, you'd get a good fight. Belt or no belt, the fight would be entertaining. That much you can deduce because both guys come to bang. You know, I'd say that Danny's the more versatile guy of the two, but Matt is very aggressive. He's very skilled. I mean, if you didn't know that, then you should know it now. That yes, he is a skilled fighter. He is a skilled guy. Anybody that saw him against Charlo or Aleem would come to that conclusion. He's a skilled fighter. I think he would be the aggressor in the match. I think Danny would be the boxer, and Matt would be the puncher, the front foot, mid-range to inside aggressive guy. I think that's the aesthetic the fight would have. I think it'd be a great fight. But there are political boundary lines to be addressed because, well, Matt's been fighting on PBC cards, right? That's where he's been. Whereas we all know Danny's on the Matchroom DAZN side of the street.
For a while now.
Being on that side of the street affords Daniel Jacobs certain opportunities. So I'm not even sure that Danny would cross the street for a Matt Korobov fight. I don't know if he crossed the street for that one. I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of incentive in that, right? It's not a big money fight, and there's no world title on the line, so I'm not sure that he would cross the street for that fight. But if Matt were to cross the street for Danny, then maybe the fight would seem more feasible. Then it would seem like, okay, now this is a possibility. Like, I could see it happening now. Because remember, Danny's talking about going to 168. If we're going to look at things that Danny's talking about, he's talking about going up to 168. If he were to do that, he's on the same side of the street as the consensus #1 super middleweight, Callum Smith. A fight with him is actually feasible because in many ways, they're stablemates. So I'm not sure how intrigued, how enticed Danny would be to just fight Matt Korobov just for the sake of fighting Matt Korobov. On that side of the street, a Golovkin rematch is possible. On that side of the street, a Callum Smith fight is possible. Or fighting Andre for his WBO title. There's a lot of possibilities on that side of the street. So I'm not sure that, you know, this would entice Danny to leave the situation he's in just to fight Matt Korobov. I don't know. I think if Matt really wants that fight, he just needs to get Eddie on the phone. In all honesty. I mean, I think Eddie would make it. I think that, you know, he'd make it. I'm not sure if the people at the PBC would make it, but I think Eddie would. I think he'd make it. But, you know, we'll see what happens with this thing. There's a lot of random call-outs in boxing that don't actually materialize into anything. So we'll see if this was even worth the 7 minutes I just spent talking about it. In other news, rumblings from Steve Kim on Twitter seem to suggest that Inoue and his upcoming fight with Inoue-Donaire, unification match in the Bantamweight division, that could be going down on November 9th. Could be when we see those two world champions lock horns. This would be the final of the World Boxing Super Series in the Bantamweight division. A lot on the line in this fight. You know, if Inoue were to win this fight, and a lot of people are actually picking him to win. You know, Inoue-Donaire, God bless him, very accomplished guy, very accomplished fighter. But a lot of people, including myself, attribute him still even being in the World Boxing Super Series to a streak of good luck that he's just been having. You know, guys just keep getting fucking injured. So it's not that he's, you know, surviving the tournament by way of force of arms so much as the circumstances and the stars just seem to be aligning for him. And his fight with Naoya Inoue, it would be going down in Japan. You know, if Inoue-Donaire were to win this fight, he would be reintegrated into the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. He'd be a unified champion. He's already got a pretty great fucking track record if you know anything about Nonito. Just as well, Naoya Inoue, who's ranked on the list, he's currently on the list, he would jump up 2 spots ahead of Leo Santa Cruz and ahead of Kazuto Ioka. It being that not only would that make Naoya Inoue a 3-division champion, you know, which he already is, but he'd be a 3-division champion and a unified champion, something that Kazuto and Leo are not. Inoue would be in possession of 2 major titles, having defeated Emmanuel Rodriguez, the IBF Bantamweight champion, and subsequently moving on to defeat Inoue-Donaire, the WBA Bantamweight champion. That would bump him up into the top 5 of the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. So the fact that there are movements and rumblings in regards to the contest, that we have an actual date, it's good news. But I'll tell you, not all news regarding the World Boxing Super Series is good news. There seem to be rumblings that they're experiencing some financial trouble. That Regis Rougarou Prograis has not yet received monies for the Josh Taylor fight to move forward. This is once again per Steve Kim. These are the rumblings, and we've heard similar rumblings to this in regards to this season of the World Boxing Super Series. We heard something very similar involving Ivan Bedinchyk, who, there were some financial issues there to be addressed. But, I'll choose to be optimistic in this situation. I'll choose to be optimistic in this scenario because in spite of those financial issues that were being reported in regards to Ivan Bedinchyk a couple of months ago, the fight between him and Josh Taylor still got made. It went through. Things did get worked out. So I'm hoping that things get worked out in this situation. That's assuming that these rumblings from Steve Kim are true. This is what he's hearing, don't shoot the messenger, as he would put it. I think the fight will come off because at the end of the day, the 140-pound division needs that fight. And Regis and Josh, they've got to know what happened this past weekend, that two of the champions at the weight unified titles. So that needs to be the move that they make. The World Boxing Super Series doesn't always involve, big names, big marquee fighters. But what it really is the best fighting the best and using that premise to launch themselves. The World Boxing Super Series is a platform to create the names if they're not already involved. Not everybody's not everybody's got the same buzz going that a Naoya Inoue has or a Usyk had, when he was in the tournament. So what the tournament does for those guys that don't have that buzz is give them the platform to showcase their abilities and launch themselves into that next stratosphere. So I think that the fight between Regis and Josh, it will come off. I think that they will iron out the financial details to move forward, because in all honesty, this is the next logical step. If Ramirez just unified with Hooker, he took Hooker's belt. If that's what he did, then the next logical step for these two guys is to try to do the same thing. And finally, a story that gets weirder and weirder the more you hear about it.
What story?
The reports seem to be suggesting, reports that are coming out now, that Amir Khan has been taken for a ride, that he's been swindled out of millions of dollars. You see, we all know that Amir Khan participated in a promotion that was staged over there in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. A promotion that was supposed to be earning him an estimated, $7-8 million. Well, apparently,
that's not the case.
He, among others, has earned substantially less for having participated in that event. He's earned substantially less, millions less, than what was initially reported. Story is that, the Saudi Arabian government fronted Bill Dosanjh, the CEO of the Super Boxing League. They fronted this guy $10 million to cover the initial expenses. And what you can deduce based on this recent turn of events is that perhaps the event didn't make the kind of money that they thought it was going to make. So they might have coerced or convinced a lot of professional fighters to participate in this event by making promises with money they didn't even have yet. And now that the event has come and gone, the participants of the event have been paid substantially less than what they were promised. And just a lot of the news involving that event and that promotion over there in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, that whole Super Boxing League thing. Reports about Manny Pacquiao supposedly signing on to fight Amir Khan over there after the Thurman fight. A lot of the news. Just strange stuff, like you're telling me Manny Pacquiao, who's preparing to fight Keith Thurman,
who was preparing,
negotiated another deal to fight Amir Khan immediately after that? Are you sure?
Really?
Turns out that was all fucking bullshit. Amir Khan, he was left holding the bag. He was left looking fucking real stupid. And that's what grabs my attention about this story. That in many ways, Amir Khan is viewed as a con man, as a swindler, as an opportunist. This is a guy who over a year ago signed a 3-fight deal with Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Promotions.
Y'all remember?
That a lot of people thought was going to result in a Kell Brook fight. And it seems like Amir Khan just took everybody for a fucking ride. Oh. Well, now it seems that he has been taken for a fucking ride. So do I feel sorry for the guy? Nah, not really. Maybe for some of the other participants on the card. Maybe them. But Amir Khan? No, because I reiterate, Amir Khan is a swindler. He's a con man. An opportunist and what is hardly a competitor these days. I mean, look at the Crawford fight, right? He could have easily chose to fight Kell Brook instead of Crawford. He probably would have made more money fighting Kell Brook instead of Crawford. Yeah, That's right, he might have. Because the Crawford pay-per-view, the numbers that are floating around in regards to that pay-per-view is something to the tune of, I don't know, 175,000 buys? If that, those are the numbers that are floating around. That's what the reports are saying, right? Well, I think that he could have made a little bit more money fighting Kell Brook in the UK. I think that they would have got to turn out for that fight because of the backstory, because of the precedence that is already there, the build-up that a lot of people have been waiting to see them lock horns for years. So even though they're not the same fighters that they used to be, they are both in that same stage of their careers. So that lends itself to the intrigue. But what's Amir Khan do? He chooses to fight someone else, where everybody thought, now that he's with Matchroom, you're gonna see that fight. No, he chose to fight somebody else. And what's he doing now? He's still looking to fight somebody else. Somebody by the name of Manny Pacquiao. This guy is still trying to talk his way into a Manny Pacquiao fight at a time where, look, nobody wants to see you fight fucking Manny Pacquiao. Nobody. Nobody thinks you've got what it takes to beat him. Nobody. You're ducking Brook. You quit against Crawford. You just got swindled in Saudi Arabia. Nobody's interested in seeing this guy swap punches with Manny Pacquiao. Nobody! And if it's true that he got swindled out of millions of dollars in Saudi Arabia, that Amir Khan, the con man, just got conned, if that story checks out, if that sticks, if that's true, it's no fucking less than he deserves. It's poetic justice. It's karma. That's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree.